Hello, and welcome to That's Not How We Do the Show. It's Animezingly Baka, the amazingly stupid podcast all about anime and manga and movies and TV and books and music and. No, it's so out of order. The amazingly stupid podcast all about anime and movies and TV shows and manga and comics and books and music and so much more. Sans video games. Of course, I'm your host, Marcus Nez. After that really awful intro that is sure to scare off any new potential listeners, I should have just cut it out, but we're keeping it in because we're keeping it in. So, we are now fully in the fall season. One Punch Man had its first episode, I think a few days ago. I'll get to that shortly and why I dropped it. But I figured I would start off with manga for once because I can't remember exactly when it was. I think just after around last week's episode. So sometime early last week. I finally finished Kaiju number 8, the first manga I've completed in over 5 years. I don't know the exact time because I don't think the end date transferred with me when I went from my anime list to anime list. But I finished Kaiju number 8 and it was okay. The manga and in that same sense, the anime, they have pacing issues. It definitely feels like there was a lot more time that could have been spent to flesh both the story out, the characters out, and instead, after a great setup, the setup of the show, of the manga, is so good of how Kafka gets the kaiju in him and gets these powers, and then him going through training and all that and introducing all of the characters. That's all great. But then Kaiju number 9 shows up so fast. They have their first conflict, their first clash. He goes away for a very short amount of time. Then he comes up again during their. Was it another kind of training thing? I can't remember exactly when he showed up the second time, or if it was maybe their first real mission, and they have their clash again, where Kaiju number 10 is introduced, and we learn more about Kaiju number 9. He takes the captain, the father of the one girl, and then goes away to obviously create a whole bunch more of the Dai Kaiju so that they can take on the individual powerful defense force folks. And then we just have a very, very long battle between all of the kaiju and their matched humans. So you'll have your fight that is with Hoshina, the one that is with Kafka, of course, with Kaiju number 9, and so on and so forth. And it just feels like there's a lot of in-between time that is missing. And for some, they may like that because it just gets straight to the action. It doesn't give you that downtime that some people could look at as filler, which it wouldn't be filler. It would be character development and story development. But you don't get any of that here. And another negative aspect, and maybe to the point because the show and the manga is more about the action than the characters, is that there's no real conclusion or satisfying aspect to the ending.
to spoil it, if you have only been watching the anime, spoilers now. Kafka doesn't end up dying. He doesn't end up turning into a full kaiju. It's a real cheap cop out of a way of dealing with his permanence with the kaiju form, where we saw the signs of him becoming permanently a kaiju. That was in season 2. And with the culmination of everything during the big, long final fight, he has already been in his form for 30 minutes, and they said that was the cutoff time of any time he's still in his form after that amount of time, he's in danger of never being able to revert back to his human form. But during his final fight with Kaiju number 9, where he defeats him, but then it's revealed that he's actually part of this Daikaiju from 500 years ago or some shit that is just a culmination of a whole bunch of different kaiju. It's just a blob of different kaijus and different abilities and so on and so forth. He gets taken down. He gets killed during the process or incapacitated. He's not fully dead because he ends up coming back. But he's pierced through his heart, I think, because this is part of what ends up happening. In his internal being, where you have that samurai looking dude who is kind of a physical form of the kaiju thing that is in him that went into his body and gave him these abilities. It tells him that, we were going to let you keep your human form or some bullshit, but your heart is damaged. And if you want to keep fighting, the only way to do that is for us to give you our heart or some shit. But in doing so, you will never be able to become human again. Are you cool with that? And he's like, yeah, I can't let my team members, my friends, so on and so forth down. So give me the heart. I'll take it so I can defeat this big bad and save everyone. So he comes back in a white form, and fast forward, people come, people help. During this whole process, when he's downed, you have Ishikawa show up and so on and so forth and blah, 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 blah. Just action, 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 action. He ends up defeating the kaiju, obviously. But instead of being a kaiju forever, the one girl's father, who was taken in by kaiju number 9 this season, earlier in the story, he is still present enough in that being that he is able to stop the kaiju inside of Kafka from making his kaijuification permanent by giving him his heart, I guess. He's like, I don't need this anymore because I'm not coming back. So here, take my heart. I think that's what ended up happening. And then Kafka's fine. He's in a coma or some shit for, I don't know if it was like 4 months or something. But he's fine. And he can still turn into his kaiju form and fight when need be. And everything is all good. And that's pretty much how it ends. There's no, what is, I always forget her name. Is it Ashiro? That doesn't sound right though. But there's no real conclusion to their story. He's not fighting by her side because he's now part of, I can't remember if it was the intelligence branch of the organization of the Defense Force. It is Ashiro. Look at me. My memory is sometimes not the worst as I expect it to be or suspect it to be. But there's nothing there. He doesn't end up fighting by her side now. So the thing he's been wanting to do his whole life since they were kids, that hasn't happened. And there isn't anything on the personal side for them. It's not like they became a couple. So it's a very unsatisfactory ending where it's just kind of like, oh, well, he didn't die. He didn't become a kaiju. Still doing his thing. Still kind of in secret, not officially, so he can't fight by himself. All right. And that's it. So I ended up giving it a 6 out of 10 because overall, I enjoyed it. I really, really love, again, the first third of the story. I like a lot of these characters a lot. I love Hoshina. I really like Ishikawa. I enjoy Kafka. And I enjoy when they get to interact with each other. I really love that scene on the rooftop with Ashro and Kafka eating together, separate benches, but just reminiscing about their past and all of that. And I wish we got more of that, but that's not what this show or the manga was about in the end. It was just a big fight. Fucking half the thing feels like it's just this fight. And it's disappointing because I think there's a lot of strong stuff here that just isn't developed. Again, both in terms of the story and the character. It's just the pacing too. Some of the manga chapters were so fucking short. I would start a manga chapter near the end where all the fighting is going on, and I didn't look at the page count, but it felt like 12 pages were done. It's just like, hey, this character showed up. Now they're going to get ready to fight next chapter. It's just like, if you were reading this week to week, because I'm assuming it was a weekly release, or I'm not sure, but I can definitely see if you were reading it as it was being printed, there'd be weeks, if not multiple weeks, where you just felt like, I waited for this? What the fuck? So, yeah. It's an okay manga, and to that point, an okay anime so far that could have been great. What would it be nice? Definitely not going to happen. It's clear at this point, but it would have been nice if the anime decided to flesh things out a bit more. But yeah, that is done, which is nice. And I have been trying to figure out what to read next because I'm not sure. I am excited about the Crunchyroll manga app, which just launched recently. And that comes with the Ultimate Fan Package, if you have that. Or if you have the Fan Package or Mega Fan Package, you can tack it on for an additional $5 a month. So you can only pay the Fan Package monthly, so it would be the equivalent of whatever for the yearly amount for those, which is funny because I believe the Ultimate Fan Package is $150 a year. And then the Mega Fan one is 120 or something. I'm not exactly sure how much it is. But if you get the Ultimate Fan Package that comes with the manga app and a whole bunch of other extra stuff and is better than the Mega Fan subscription, that is $150 a year again, like I just said. If you were to get the Mega Fan subscription and then add the manga subscription on top of it, that would come out to $155 a year. So there's something off with the math there where if you're a Mega Fan app, a Mega Fan subscriber, and you want to get the manga, you want to get access to the manga library, PSA, just up your subscription to Ultimate Fan. Don't add on the manga subscription because it's a slightly worse deal, which is funny because with the addition of the manga app to Ultimate Fan that you get with it, you'll also get more streams, more concurrent streams. I don't know if offline viewing is also included with the Mega Fan subscription. You get a slightly better discount with certain products in their store and other smaller additional perks, but that was just funny. But My Dress Up Darling is included in that, and there could be some other things. I would love to reread Kawaii Complex if that is going to be back there, but I haven't checked it out yet. However, to get back to me and One Punch Man and me dropping it, that made me say that is probably the best next manga to read because I love the first season. The second season, as everyone presumably knows, was a drop down in quality, a significant drop down in quality. I am a defender of season 2 as in it being a still good, solid show. I think I maybe gave it a 7, maybe a 6, and that for a lot of people will be way too high, I'm sure. However, keep in mind, I give the first season a 10. I think the first season is fantastic, both in terms of story, character, humor, of course, the art and animation. I had an absolute blast with the first season. So a drop of 3 or 4 points is significant, but I don't think the second season was bad. I still enjoyed it overall. I would say art-wise, yes, a drop in quality in terms of just sheer art and animation, but the biggest, most egregious negative or drop off in art quality would be the character's name is Genos, the android robot dude, because the way JC Staff, who they're not a great studio, they have an aesthetic. I can't remember if they did Prison School, but it has they have a dirty, grimy aesthetic that just can work for certain types of thematic shows if they're kind of trashy. They're a good trash studio, which nothing wrong with that. But the way they draw metal and more so than that, color it in and all that, it looks very cheap and ugly and tacky. It just, his arms looked horrendous. And any other time metal shows up, not, and this isn't exclusive to One Punch Man, just in all other shows, maybe it's gotten better, but at least back then it was still awful. But I still enjoy the show. But again, that drop off 3 or 4 points is significant because if you think about something that is a 7 out of 10 for you, that you enjoy, maybe it's a comfort anime, you enjoy, you don't love it, but it's something that you have a good time watching, a 7 out of 10. If you were excited for another season and the next season for you was a 4 or a 3, that would be a big that would be a big drop. So that is the equivalent of me with One Punch Man, where I think, yes, the second season was a big drop off, but it was still enjoyable overall. I still had a better time with it than plenty of other shows. However, with season 3, to get to the point, I realized a few minutes in that it's been so long since season 2. Season 2 came out a long time after season 1 that I don't have a strong memory of everything that happened. So with that, I feel like I have to go back and watch the first 2 seasons before I could continue on with season 3. And given the continuing with JC Staff and the expected lower quality, given how much I have heard fantastic things about the manga, I might as well just read that instead of rewatching the first 2 seasons and then watching the third season as it airs. I think that makes more sense, and it solves my "what do I read next" problem. So that is what I'm going to do. I watch. So I can't speak to the first episode because I dropped it after a few minutes. I knew right away. I was like, I don't know what's going on, so I'm out. Artistically, I can say for those first few episodes, some of it, it didn't look bad, but I didn't see a lot of animation, so I don't know how the animation looks. And Genos did not show up during those first few minutes, so I can't speak to that either. But other than that, of course, we had new episodes of My Hero Academia and Spy Family, and then the first episode of Campfire Cooking in Another World with My Absurd Skill aired. So I'll start with that one because it's the new one. This first episode was a solid episode. Nothing special, nothing crazy happened. It's just a return of this world and these characters that I enjoy. Very pleasant. They cooked some gyoza, which was good looking when he finished cooking it and then flipped it over onto the plate and showed it all freshly, fully cooked. It looked pretty good. A lot of gyozas as well. And we had the introduction of a new familiar in this pixie dragon, tiny, tiny little dragon, which I'm sure is going to be able to transform into a large dragon, however it does. But that one was cute because it's very tiny. And when it was eating one of the gyozas, it was holding onto it as if it was hugging it. So it kind of looked like this little dragon was hugging this gyoza while chomping down on it. But other than that, they started off the episode killing some spiders. At the end of the episode, they eat the spiders, which turn out to just be essentially better crabs. And you can kind of imagine that, especially if you look at a tarantula. If a tarantula was bigger, it structurally is reminiscent of a crab, or a crab's vice versa. So you can see how that would translate. However, I don't give a shit. I don't care if spiders are the most delicious. I do not want to eat a spider. I don't want anything to do with a spider. It's one of those things where I hate mayo. And if I see mayo being put in the tuna, I don't want to eat that tuna. But if you put the mayo in the tuna without me knowing, I'll enjoy the tuna. I haven't had tuna with mayo in forever, but when I was a kid, that's how it was. Very stupid, stupid kid. But they kill all these spiders in the beginning of the episode, and you find out much later that the reason why all of the creatures in the forest were getting hostile was because of this pixie dragon showing up and all of them sensing it and being concerned for themselves. So they were really just fighting for their lives. So when they were freaking out and seemed to be attacking the main character and his group, what's his face, the wolf, he killed them all because he's like, fucking get out of here. Stop fucking with us. And so the main dude was like, oh, I kind of feel bad for them, but they taste so good. They just taste so good. But the dwarf was planning to have a request for the guild to deal with the forest shit that was going on. And then it's like, oh, well, we already did that. Look, we have all these spider carcasses. Kind of bad that you use these for their silk to create your garments and all that stuff. It's like, oh, that's fine. They repopulate like crazy. But there was fun in that moment just because it is very reminiscent of the way I play open world games, and I'm sure a lot of people do, where you'll go around exploring, you'll find this, you'll do this thing, you'll do that thing, and then you'll get to a town and start talking to people and find out that the quest they are about to ask you to do, you already completed it. So you're there, you're talking to them, hey, can you do this for me? Oh, you already did this? Oh, you did this for me? All right. Easy peasy. I don't have to do anything because I already did it. I had no idea that that's what they wanted me to do. But it's a solid episode. Solid OP. Just nice to have the show back. It's a very, very comforting anime. Speaking of comfort anime, it's a great one for that. Then with Spy Family, we had two stories. The first one was revolving around Anya in school. The introduction of this old woman. I forget what her title was, but she's a very strict person and is the one handing out all these bolts. I forget the exact name for them, but essentially they're the equivalent of the other thing they're looking for, like they have their stars or whatever they are for good things. So they're trying to accomplish things and get those stars that show their quality. And then they have these bolts, which are the opposite. And if you end up getting, I think, 8 bolts, you end up getting expelled. In the first half of the episode, Anya ends up getting her first bolt because this old lady is doing an inspection on all of the students to see if they have everything they're supposed to have on them, their handkerchief, etc., and nothing that they're not supposed to have. So you're not supposed to have a snack in your bag or something like that, and a kid gets a bolt for that. And the one boy that Anya is trying to get friendly with so that she can get invited over to their place with her father and so on for the mission, he ends up realizing he doesn't have his handkerchief. And so Anya offers him hers because she always keeps a spare in her bag. And she's got her adorable little smug look on her face. So she gives it to him. Everything's fine with him. And then when she goes to get inspected, she's searching in her bag for her handkerchief, her spare one, and it's not there. She just imagine she always takes a spare. So she ends up getting her first bolt. She can read the old woman's mind when Damien was about to come clean on the whole situation and heard that she said, well, if they're trying to pull a fast one on me, then I'm going to give them both 2. I don't know if it was 2 bolts period or 2 additional bolts on the spot. So she stops him because that would be bad. But he wants to make it up for her, so he offers to cook her something or other, which makes her feel, it was worth it because I'm getting closer in on that. When she gets home and Lloyd sees the bolt and finds out what it is, he gets so shocked and surprised that he falls backward and goes unconscious and gets transported back into the past. So we get a backstory of him as a kid, and you get to see how his father was not really the greatest father, not the most supportive father. Very much so wants him to fall in line and do what he says and so on. He's playing with his friends, and the story with him, the episode culminates with an attack on the city where it's, yeah. I wasn't as into the Lloyd backstory as I should have been wanted to be, but it did end on a strong point with the attack that I am curious to see where the third episode picks up from there and where that goes. But a solid episode. Enjoyable episode. I feel like Spy Family is thinking back on the previous seasons, as much as I really, really love the show and love it a lot. I don't know if it's the most exciting show to talk about, per se. But then with My Hero Academia, the second episode, we had the continuation of the fight between All for One and All Might. I forgot his name for a second. Of course, the last episode ended with not Slain. What is this stupid name? Scave, Slain. Blaine, not Blaine. Where are you? Stain. I was close, one letter off. But he licked All for One's blood, preventing him from moving. But that didn't last long because All for One then just expels all of his blood or expels the blood that is I don't know how exactly it worked because he didn't. If he expelled all his blood, he'd be fucking dead. So he's maybe expelling blood while creating a new blood. I don't remember. I don't exactly remember the explanation, but that doesn't work for long. Stain ends up getting obliterated, his ability taken from him, and the fight between All Might and One for All kind of just comes to an end because there's nothing left for All Might to do in addition to him using his ability, All for One using Stain's ability of whatever it's called to stop him from moving, which only works for Quarks, right? And I guess he still has the Quark stuff. It's just his body is no longer where it's able to use. Anywho, he is taking him to the floating base thing where Midoriya, is that his name? Right? But I was trying to think. Deku. That was the one I was trying to think of his nickname because that's the one I prefer to call him by. Even though, depending on the character, they might call me Izuku, they may call me Midoriya. They'll call so many different things. But he shows up there holding All Might's body up in kind of like a I'm gonna break his back stance, and it all seems very, very dire. Deku is trying to handle both of these situations at the same time. He is still fighting against Shigaraki, but he sees All for One holding All Might, and All Might is just this representation of good and heroes that is so important. And if he were to be killed on live TV, it's going to be a big moral hit for everyone. So someone needs to do something. And the episode ends with the revival of Bakugo, which was exciting to see because I was like, oh, what is this? What is this? What's going on here? And then you see this shot of him, which is probably the best looking shot in the episode. It's not super animated. It's just the quality in the drawing of him there. It's very good. And I don't think Bakugo has ever looked any hotter than he does there. You know, he's got his explosive powers. My God, did he look good there? He looked very, very good. But that is where the episode ends. Meaning I and everyone else are just excited to get the next episode. So far, My Hero has been really, really good. This is a very, very strong start to the final season, which is good. You want as rocky as My Hero has been through its last few seasons, you really want them to come together and deliver an incredible final season, a send-off for the show. And so far it's really, really good. And then Gachiakuta continues. We have a new OP, which I wasn't even realizing or thinking about the fact that we're at the point where we're in the second part of the season. New OP time. It was good, but it wasn't Pale Dust's Hugs. And I finally went and listened to the entirety of Hugs, and it's an incredible song that goes all over the place. So many different genres and styles, and it's a fantastic song. And it remains by far my favorite OP of the year. So trying to follow that up is going to be hard. First listening, first viewing, solid OP. We'll see how I feel about it with continued listens. But it was a bit disappointing to load up the episode, and when the OP started, I was ready for Hugs, and I didn't get Hugs. But this episode returns to the main group of cleaners, Rudo, Engine, so on and so forth. They go to a doctor to get some of their wounds checked out because the artist stuff was that thing they drew on them was really just dealing with any kind of potential mortal wounds. So you do a little bit of that, then they go to a restaurant to eat and whatnot. And they run into the leader of the Raiders there, who antagonizes Bruto specifically to get him to attack. And when he does that, the other dude with the Raider leader uses his vital instrument to create a portal that sucks in the leader and Rudo. Then Engine and everyone else grabs onto him, and they all get sucked in through this portal. And where they ended up, we'll find out next week. So, not a whole. That's not to say a lot didn't happen this episode, but this episode was very much so a one. It's kind of a tonal whiplash after the tonal whiplash of last week's episode. It's just that episode was very dark, very specific to that particular character. So getting back to normal is kind of a weird thing at first, but it's very much so an in between episode. Just like, here, let's have this episode that is just going to set up the next big thing. So that's what it was, because I'm very intrigued about next week's episode. This week's episode was fine, but next week's episode, I'm excited to see what is actually going on. And it had a funny ending where they were all sucked in by the portal, and just the non vital instrument users, the non givers were left, and the owner of the restaurant was like, "Did they dine and dash?" No, they didn't dine and dash. Yeah, solid episode. But that is it in terms of what I watched. I'm kind of glad that I ended up dropping One Punch Man, because that frees up some space to potentially maybe either do some rewatches. I've had a strong desire to rewatch Mashal, but then I still want to watch the Pluto anime on Netflix, the Terminator anime on Netflix, and there are a few others that I have not gotten around to. What is it? Oshinokoa or something like that. I've heard a lot of good things about. So we'll see on that front. But that is going to do it for this year episode of Animezingly Baka. Once again, I am Marcus Nez. If you enjoy this here show or any of the stuff I do and what have you, you can support me and my nonsense over at patreon.com/pxs. There you can get access to the sausage dump where I talk about this, that, and whatever, as well as a private Discord channel and some fancy Discord roles, depending on your tier, of course. Or you could just support me to support me if that is your fancy. That is, again, patreon.com/pxs. In addition to the Patreon, you can find links to the site, the YouTube, the Discord, and so much more over at pxsausage.com. That is the letter P, the letter X, sausage.com. But that is it. That is all. As always, thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoyed this here episode, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. But for now, adios, arrivederci. Bye.
It's go time. Go, Daddy. It's go time.